Hey, everybody, this is Laura,
And I'm Haley.
and you're listening to The Body Pod. Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Body Pod. I'm so excited. Today, I have one of my amazing dear friends, Robin Hawkins, on today. She is a yoga instructor and a self inquiry facilitator, among other things. Robin, thank you so much for being on the Body Pod.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where do you teach yoga? You know,
Yeah, I teach yoga at Core Power Yoga in Salt Lake. I have been there about 7.5 years now. And I have just been on a spiritual seeking journey for about 10 years now. And so it's led me through various things, various situations, teachings, all of those things. And most currently into really heavily into this self inquiry process.
as your friend and watching you on this 10-year journey, it's been really inspiring and touching just to see everything that you've gone through. And I would say the thing that has impressed me the most is how much work you've actually put into it. You don't just, read a couple of paragraphs and call it like self development. I mean, I feel like, went all in the deep end and have really changed your life.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, I mean,
Because it's amazing work and it can be hard work. I don't wanna stick to that story that it all is hard. That I'm actually working on changing that right now, that, like, growth and change has to be hard. But the reality is you do have to face some difficult things about yourself, and change is hard. Change requires a tremendous amount of energy, of commitment, of awareness to continually make a different choice and then understand yourself better. And why did I do that? Okay, I'll do better next time. So, yeah, thank you for acknowledging that.
I'm
And it's just kind of how I do things. I go all in, and maybe life just got hard enough for me that I wanted to change. I've wanted to deeply understand myself and really dive into that and just continually be a better version. I want more happiness. I want more joy. And, the other side of that is darkness sometimes. So,
Yeah, that's such a good
yeah.
point. It's been I've loved all of the rich conversations we've had over the years just about the journey you've been on, and it's honestly helped me a lot too to work harder on myself because it is hard sometimes. Some of the things that you've done, you've done a lot of the Joe Dispenza work, and you've gone to the
Yeah.
retreats, right? And even
Yeah.
volunteered.
Mhm. Yeah, I stumbled on his work. I remember, so this journey of mine started about 9 or 10 years ago, post divorce. I went through some really hard stuff. I made some really hard, hurtful decisions, and I just wasn't happy. And I didn't even know that I wasn't happy because I lived this dream life and I should have been happy and I should have been fulfilled, but I wasn't. And so I really, really started seeking then. And I probably a year or two into it, I stumbled on Dr. Joe's work. I remember, I will never forget it. I was running on the treadmill at Excel,
I love
and his recording started playing on YouTube, and he was talking about his journey, and I just had full body chills. Like, I get the chills when something's true. That's one of my intuitive things that happens to me. And I just was like, this is true. Everything he said resonated so deeply with me. So I just started listening. I didn't know a ton about him, and I would dig and dig and find anything I could. And I thought, like, it would be so cool to hear him speak in person. And then it was just kind of like a couple years of that. And then shortly after, I think, like, everything stopped after COVID, and I went to one of his, like, the second event he did back post COVID. And the minute I got there, I saw the volunteers he had, and I was like, I'm going to do that. And I went all in. I've been to probably 12, I lost count, like 12 or more of his retreats. I volunteered several times. And that has been a pivotal huge part of my life and the work that I've done and the way that I view possibilities. And I've witnessed some really incredible things through his work.
I can't even imagine how life-changing the things that
Yeah,
you've witnessed and felt, and I remember seeing you in person a couple of times right after you got back, and it's like your energy was electric, and it's not
yeah.
even that it was just easy, you were working through hard stuff too. It just I don't know, I think your commitment to what you've like, the devotion to yourself has it truly is inspiring, like I said. And I saw that you guys are doing another retreat.
Yeah, yes. So my partner Cynthia and I, we also host yoga retreats. She also teaches at Core Power. And the next one we're doing is in April. So it'll be yoga, wellness, meditation. I love to teach also. I also teach group fitness. And so I love to also work out in addition to yoga. So there'll be some of that. It'll be really fun. We're keeping it pretty intimate, all women for this one. Um, yeah, it'll be really
I
cool.
mean,
So if anybody listening wants more information about that, I would love to share.
yeah, and we'll get your info at the end, so if anyone wants, the info.
Perfect.
And, um, I mean, if you guys live in Salt Lake, Robin is one of everyone's favorite yoga teachers. She does the best music. She is gets everyone going, so I can't even imagine, like, how good the retreats are. I
Oh,
need
thanks.
to be attending this one. But one of the reasons I was really excited to have you come on is I feel like a lot of people don't know about self inquiry. And because you are a certified facilitator now and you've been working on it for so long, I remember the very first time I heard about self inquiry. This is going to age me, which I don't like doing. But Byron Katie. I read her book, and she would then interview people. You could actually listen to her doing self-inquiry
Mhm.
to people, and her work, which you can explain, isn't as deep as what you do, but I bought the CDs, hence the and I would when I was cleaning my house or my bedroom or whatever, I had them in my CD player, and I was addicted to listening to it because it was truly so fascinating to me how powerful the work is and simple in a way.
Mhm.
There's simplicity in what the method is, and for me, I like when things are simple and clear, and I will never forget a couple of times, like, stopping dead in my tracks because it was just so profound, the stories I was hearing, and
Yeah.
so when you told me that you were certifying and all the hours and work you've put into this, I was so excited. Okay, so why don't you are the expert, so for someone who doesn't know anything about self-inquiry or the birth of it, why don't you give everyone just the info on that?
Okay. Yeah, I'll touch lightly, excuse me, on Byron Katie, because what I do is I view as like a really extended version of what
Mhm,
she does. Most people that are familiar with her know the 4 questions, and that's
mhm.
the really simple version of her work. She does also have a worksheet that you can figure out that goes a little, or that you can fill out that goes a little bit deeper. But the 4 questions is you would start with a statement or a judgment and like say, that woman shouldn't have been rude to me. So then you would ask yourself, is it true? Can you be certain that it's true? Who are you with that thought? And who would you be without that thought? And then you turn it around, and the direct turnaround would be, she should have been rude to me. Could it be as true or more true? So that is the really simple version. And what that just shows you is that you kind of take a step back, because anytime that you're saying you should or shouldn't do something, you're at war with reality. And the minute you're at war with reality of what happened, you're creating your own suffering.
Yeah.
So, but that is the simplified version of her work. So my mentor, the woman who trained me, she trained under Byron Katie for many, many years, and they still are in contact and have conversations. And she has kind of created a really extended version of those 4 questions. And so what we do is we identify a stressful thought, and so we could use the same thought. She shouldn't have been rude to me. And then I anchor you into that moment over and over. I ask you to feel what it feels like in your body to believe that thought. Because the other thing that this does that I love is it brings body awareness to our emotions. We feel our emotions in our body, they create long lasting things in us. And so to be able to identify that is powerful, so powerful for so many people. Most people are like, what do you mean? Like what do you mean? Where do I feel it?
Yeah.
So, and most of us have just not, maybe not most, many of us have never been given the tools to, or the verbalization of our feelings. Like so many people don't know how to verbalize their feelings. So that can be really powerful. And then we just go through a process. It's just as straightforward, but it just goes deeper. So I ask you a series of questions. I ask you to go deeper into that. Like, what does this mean for you? I did inquiry with somebody the other day, and he was talking about trust and like really struggling with trust. And so I had him look at trust, and he found, I don't even know what trust means to me. And so we have these big words, these big concepts that we want out of life and out of people, and we don't even know what that means to us. So it can be really powerful in that way. So we go through all of that, and I just get you deeper into it, and within that process you always find something. I always get the answer like, "Oh my gosh, I did not even know this was such a big deal to me." And it's always the little things that trigger people that are big things. They trigger you for a reason because something is coming up in you that wants to be looked at. And it's a deep seated belief, a judgment, something that you decided about you when you were a little kid. So that is the next step as we loop it back to a childhood memory. And that can be the most powerful part of the process because you're able to, from that point, identify these loops, these patterns, where they started in your adolescence and how we're just reenacting them over and over as adults. So that is really, really powerful. If you can see that, then you can do something with that. You can change from there moving forward. So, and then the last part of the process is more fun. It's turning it all around. It's going back to that. How would you have seen that without that thought? Like, who would you have been in that moment if you couldn't believe she shouldn't have been rude to you?
Yeah.
And obviously the thoughts that we choose are bigger than my example I'm giving, but that's so powerful too. That's one of my favorite parts is because the biggest reason I love this process is the accountability and the ownership it gives you. I want full accountability for everything that comes into my life and everything I do. And how can you make a better decision if you're not able to look at that and be like, oh yeah, I can't believe who I turned into when I believed that. And that's all old conditioning.
Yep.
And then I need the awareness to know that I have a different choice moving forward.
Yeah, there's so
So, and then, yeah, and then we do the turnaround. So, sorry. Yeah, that's an brief explanation of the whole process that we do.
yeah, I love that you guys go so much deeper because I really believe that there's so many layers to it. And Robin, I did self inquiry with her last week and it's 2 hours long. I'm sure sometimes it can be shorter or longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at first I thought, oh, it's going to be 2 hours. I wonder, if I I can't imagine it going that long. I certainly like I'm not gonna have that much like oh my gosh, how naive of me. I have not been able to stop thinking about it, honestly, Robin. I'm like having a hard time finding the words because I was so taken back by what we discovered through the process. And I wanted to really experience Robin's technique and the way that you guys facilitate this and understand and go deep with her. And I got way more than I bargained for, and it was really powerful, and the accountability and you asking questions and having to answer them, and even at first, when you would ask me a question and I would have to think about it for a second, and the second you just know the right way to ask it, but to continually ask it. Like you knew there were still more things there. I feel like you could feel that from me. And
Mhm.
so many more things came up than just the one thing that we were talking about that has been causing me stress lately. And I have not been able to stop thinking about it, but I have felt so much lighter since our session, and it hasn't felt heavy, and I feel more in control of it because I understand where those thoughts were coming from and all of these emotions I was attaching to it. You guys, I could not wait to get her on here because I want people to know about this because it truly got to the deepest part of what it is. Because, like you said, it could be, was this girl rude to me? But then all of a sudden you realize why that was triggering you, and it has nothing to do with this girl or nothing to do with even that she was rude to you or whatever. But I do love too that you connect the body because when you asked me that, I thought about it for a second and immediately it's like I could feel my emotions and I said in my heart and in my stomach. And it, yeah, it's just to have that awareness, I think is life changing. And like you said, I want to be accountable too for my emotions and how I show up. And I don't want things to trigger me. I want to be present and authentic and not be reactive.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yes, and the truth is well, I think the truth is that we will probably always be triggered,
Yeah.
right? Like, we're living in the world, we're not going to reach, like, Buddha status or but I'm so grateful that I have a tool
Yeah.
to look at those things. You know? And so, yeah, I mean, I would love to get to that point too, where I've done so much work that nothing bothers me anymore. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and I do think this is the tool. It's interesting because I've read all the books, I've done so much work, and there's so much content out there that is beautiful, beautiful content. And it is true, but none of them tell you how. There's so many books just saying, just let it go and just let it be and everything's beautiful and all of that. Yeah, it's in theory, we all want that,
Yeah.
but none of them tell you how to. And so, my experience, why I love inquiry and why I wanted to become a facilitator of it is because it has been the one thing that has actually helped me let go.
Mm.
Because and that's one thing that also with the 4 questions is conceptually you could get to a better point of like, yes, I can see that. I can see who I became.
Mhm.
But this process that we do, in my experience, it actually changes you on a cellular level. It's like the difference from just knowing something and like believing it conceptually to knowing it and living it in my body. Like I am forever changed every session I do. So it's yeah, it's awesome.
How beautiful that that is your work, that you're
Yeah.
changing people's lives, and in turn, it's also I'm sure you're learning from it and growing from it every time too.
Yeah, and honestly, like, they're doing the work.
Yeah.
I just look at it as my job is to hold somebody in a moment long enough. Most people struggle with staying present because of all the things we've talked about. They don't wanna feel that way in their body. They don't know what is going on, and they're just, like, in fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
So my job is to hold somebody in a moment long enough so that they can zoom out and see the picture. And so it is everybody's own work. I would never want to take credit for that. but it is such an honor to sit with and witness people. And every single session I do, their healing is for me too.
Yeah.
All of them. Like I'm healing while they're allowing me to witness them. It's crazy. Like everything that comes up for people, I'm like, yep, this is for me. Like I was just you last week. Like, thank you.
Yeah.
The one that we did with you, Laura, like that was a big one. So I commend you too for staying in it. And that has been like just what we looked at with you has been my biggest I just could relate to it so deeply, like over the last several years.
Yeah.
So
It
yeah.
and I would say that I am someone that I like to go deep. I like to go deep
Mhm.
with people, with conversations, with spirituality. I am if someone tells me a story, I feel it, I will cry, I'll get emotional, I'm happy with you. And so I'm not
Yeah.
someone I think that like pulls away from that, but even doing that process with you and going through it, there were a couple of moments that I was like, "Okay, I don't want you to ask me again. Like, this is feeling hard,
Yeah.
emotional, and I am doing exactly what I needed to do. I needed to uncover it and, like, find it, like, exactly what it is that's going on with me and to pinpoint it so I can understand it and learn from it and correct it, heal it."
Yeah.
And so there were a couple of moments, but it is interesting how there is maybe not always, but oftentimes so much more to the issues that we're having
Yeah.
or the stresses.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. I mean, it things come up because they're ready to be looked at. And so I what is triggering to us is just what you said earlier, is it's never really about that.
Yeah.
It's something deeper that we've been carrying for a long time.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
I remember the first time I did the questions to myself, I just asked them. And once again, this isn't the what Robin does is far more in depth and not the same as Byron Katie's 4 questions. But I asked myself because I was really having an issue with my brother. I love him so much, and I disagreed with something he was doing. Um, well, I'll tell you, he wouldn't care. So he started smoking. So no disrespect to anyone who smokes. But I was so mad at him. And so I remember saying to myself, like, no, I'm right. Like, you're not supposed to smoke. It causes cancer, like, bad for your teeth, all the things. It's expensive. I was going on telling myself all the reasons why I am right and why he absolutely should not be smoking. And I would give him the hardest time and not be very nice to him about it. And so when I asked the 4 questions and thought about it, I was so embarrassed because I was like, this has nothing to do with him. I actually think that it makes me look bad because this is when I was running marathons,
Mm,
doing all these things. And I've always been so into health and fitness. And I I was mad at him because I thought he needed to live his life the way I live my life, and that's the only way that it is the right path. And I
yeah.
don't believe that. I know that that's not true, but when in that moment and I was probably like, I don't know, 25 at the time or something, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I think he needs to live his life the way that I am, and there's no way he can be happy, and I'm right and he's wrong." And I'm like, "I actually care because I think it makes me look bad that my brother's smoking because I don't advocate it." And
Mhm.
I remember when he got home, I we were actually living together at the time. We're really good
We're really good
friends. And I apologized and I said, "I am so sorry. I have been so rude to you and it's not my business that you smoke." I made it my business, and it was a very humbling and just really big learning experience for me. And I share that because I think that that's just like an easy example of really like how like what can come from this work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a beautiful example, and good for you at 25 for being open to that
Well,
and taking accountability for it.
the
Yeah.
on CDs were really helpful.
I love it.
I know, but
Love it.
I learn from example a lot. I like when people share examples, and so even the examples you gave, but I just
Yeah.
I remember, like, being like, I'll show her these 4 questions, like, "I'm right, he's wrong," and it was like, "Oh, wow, okay, so I need to say sorry."
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Yeah, and that you can see too that, like, his smoking hasn't had nothing to do with you also.
No,
It's like we wanna take on other people's stuff, and it has nothing to do with us.
no, it's
So
not.
that's another powerful thing I've seen is, like, so much of people's stuff that I've carried that's not mine,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah,
I had a recent, like just to give another quick example, I'm an open book, so I'll share because I think my healing helps other people too.
yeah, for sure.
Um, but I had somebody kind of recently that I was dating, like, call it off, and then he came back, and then he called it off again, and so my statement was, like, he shouldn't have come back because that actually hurt worse the second time, and I questioned that through, like, in depth. It was, like, a deep inquiry, and I grew up my one of my sisters was a drug addict, and almost all of my childhood memories are about her. And, I actually started this process thinking, I haven't experienced any childhood trauma. Like, I don't know what's going to come up for me, because, and I am lucky. I haven't experienced like big traumas like that. But growing up with a drug addict sister was extremely traumatic for me and what my family went through and witnessing all of it and being scared for my sister and all of that. So, anyway, I looped it back to my childhood and my childhood memory was her coming back and going through this cycle
Wow.
and it was crazy when she would do that without giving details. It was crazy and I was scared all the time. And so what I learned was in that moment as a little girl that my voice didn't matter. I had to just like kind of shut down and I went along with what was happening. And so we learn these things as little kids, and so of course I'm going to bring in somebody that's going to do something similar to me that's going to feel the exact same so that I can learn this lesson about myself and I can show up differently. Like, I'm an adult now, but if I don't discover that, I will continue allowing people to do that to me forever and wonder why. And it's like I'm the common denominator here. Like, something has to change and I need to find my voice. And so it was super powerful for me. So that's what the childhood memory can do is it's crazy what will come up. And people are like, I didn't know this even bothered me. And it's like, yeah, that actually created some trauma for you.
That is I have the chills. That gave me the
Yeah.
chills. Just
Yeah.
yeah, I do think you're right with connecting it to childhood memories because that's where most of it starts, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
ugh, I mean, I feel like I am such an open book too, and I'm super vulnerable with anyone I'm with and publicly too. I mean, I'm a pretty open person, so I don't know why I didn't, like, specifically say, before, but it was interesting because before Robin and I got together to do my session with her on self-inquiry, I was thinking, "What are my stresses and what am I gonna talk about?" And there were a couple that didn't seem really kind of just like, "Oh, I'm sure other people think this or have these stresses," and but the second I started having the conversation with her, it was like, this is what's so heavy on your heart, and I have one of the biggest stresses for me right now is that's weighing on me is that I don't feel like I'm where I should be career-wise, and I was I've been working on having a baby for a really long time, and I have a new 4-month-old baby, and
Cutest
so
ever.
the cutest thing ever, and so I made one of my dreams came come true and worked on that, and I told her, I said, "I think that other things in my life were dormant, and this is one of them, and it's the thing that's just at this top of my stress and what I think about all the time and comparing and really just wanting to make your mark in the world and what are you here for and what are you going to spend your time doing?" And that's why just listening to you talk about self-inquiry and this is, you know, one of your career paths and one of the things that you're adding to this world, and it's such beautiful work. And so yeah, in a way, I'm feel so blessed and lucky and almost felt bad to tell Robin, you know, this is one of the things that's heavy on my heart right now and stressing me out. But it was interesting just all of the things that we worked through and where it, you know, really what my emotions are underneath all of it. And so I don't know, I feel like we're all just, you know, everyone has something that you would never know that's like heavy on their heart or causing them stress or something that they want to address. But it, I feel like going through that with you, almost, I feel like I have tools that whenever those feelings are happening, I can go through those layers and I'm like, oh, I know exactly what that is. Or I feel that in my body and changing the words. And I wrote down a bunch of powerful um, sentences that we talked about. And it almost got me excited instead of feeling this like stress and despair. And obviously, we had to go through the work to get there. But, and I want to do another session just to even go deeper and going through other things. But yeah, I
I
feel
love
like
that.
it's important to, I don't know, for me, I never feel authentic unless I'm being real too, so I'm like, "Okay, fine, I'll tell you the I'll tell you my."
I wasn't implying anything by saying that.
Honestly, I actually don't think you were. I just was like, "She knows this is how we both are." Like, I feel like every time we see each other, we go straight to, like, we're so deep, we're so personal and just real and
Yeah,
raw, and I feel like that's just how we are, but yeah, so it's yeah, I feel like it's acknowledging it was super powerful and to work through it, so
yeah. I'm so glad.
yeah.
Like, that it makes me so happy.
No, it makes me so happy
Yeah.
too. I have felt lighter and it's been really cool. So I want people to know where they can find you. So if anyone wants to um schedule self-inquiry sessions or sign up for retreats or follow you, the things that she posts on Instagram, I have like 7,000 screenshots. I'm like, I have to read that again that Robin did or the quotes or whatever else. Let people know. And just so you guys know, self-inquiry does not need to be done in person. It can be over Zoom, it can be
Yeah.
phone call, I'm sure, just whatever. So where can people find you?
Yeah, we did a FaceTime, huh?
We did FaceTime and we live in
And it works it surprised me how well it works.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure. So we could do either. Um, I think Instagram is probably the best blanket place just to find retreats, inquiry. You can message me there to schedule. And my handle is Robbie. It's Robbie, C as in cat, dot H. I know I need a better one.
no, that's fine.
It's been there a long time, but that's my handle, and I'm sure you'll probably put it in the
Yep.
comments if you can. We could also add my email in there too, and they can email me.
Yeah, we will add her info in the description box so you guys can find her. And I'm just thank you so much. I'm so honored that you came on and
Oh,
shared
thank you.
this valuable information. It's really cool.
Oh, thank you so much, and you're welcome. But yeah, it was my pleasure to be here.
Oh,
I love talking to you. I could just keep talking to you.
same. I know you.
I'm sure everybody would get a little bored.
Well, thanks you guys for listening. And until next time, bye.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider giving us a 5-star rating and sharing the Body Pod with your friends.
Until next time.